Okay, so good morning, everybody, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, probably, depending on the place where you are, to online participants. My name is Yoichi Ida, the former Assistant Vice Minister of Japanese Ministry of Internal Affairs, and also the chair of OECD Digital Policy Committee. So thank you very much for joining us. And today we are discussing the current situation and also the some foresight on global AI governance. And we have very excellent speakers on my left side. So let me introduce briefly my speakers before they take the floor and make their own self-introduction. So from my end, first Dr. Ansgar Kone, the Global AI Ethics and the Regulatory Leader from E&I Global Public Policy. Next to him, Mr. Abhishek Singh, the Undersecretary, oh no, maybe, from the Indian Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Thank you very much, Abhishek. And next to him, we have Lucia Russo from OECD, economist at AI and Digital Emerging Technologies Division. So next to her, we have Miss Belinda Claiborne, Director of Privacy and AI Policy from Meta. Thank you very much for joining us. And last not, of course, least, we have Dr. Yuha Haikira, Advisor for International Aspects of Artificial Intelligence from European Commission. Thank you very much for joining us. So, AI governance. As all of you know, we are seeing rapid changes in technologies, but also the policy formulation. Japanese government started the international discussion on AI governance as early as year 2016, when we made a proposal on an international discussion on AI governance at G7 and also OECD. So this proposal led to the agreement on first international and intergovernmental principle as OECD AI principles in the year 2019, and also the G7 discussion led to the launch of global partnership on AI GPay in the year 2020. Also, UNESCO started the discussion on ethical AI recommendations, and the European Commission started the discussion on AI governance framework, which led to the enactment of AI Act in the year 2023. After these years, we saw a rapid change in AI technology, in particular, near the end of 2022, a rapid rise of ChatGPT. And we saw a lot of new types of risks and challenges brought by new AI technology. That was the background why we started the discussion at G7 on Hiroshima process. We wanted to respond to the new risks and challenges brought by generative AI, and near the end of the year, G7 agreed on code of conduct and guiding principles of Hiroshima AI process. And this effort led to the launch of reporting framework for code of conduct of Hiroshima process in the year 2024. And this year, we saw 20 reports by AI companies publicized on OECD website on the 22nd of April. In the meantime, UN also started the discussion on AI governance, and we saw the agreement on UN resolutions on related to AI, 2 resolutions, one led by US and one led by China. UN also started the discussion on Global Digital Compact, which concluded in September 2024, and we are now in the process of GDC follow-up and also in the beginning of discussion on WSIS Plus 20 review. So this is the rapid and the short history of AI governance discussion and over the last probably several years. And against this background, I would like to discuss with these excellent speakers on what are the priorities and the emphasis in these discussions for different stakeholders in AI ecosystem and what are their perspectives. So let me begin with Lucia from OECD. So what do you think your priorities and emphasis are in promoting international or global AI governance? And what international initiatives and frameworks do you consider very significant at present and also for the future discussion for countries, for international organizations and other stakeholders? What is your view?
Thank you, Yoichi. Good morning, and thank you, my fellow panelists, for this interesting discussion. As Yoichi mentioned, we have started working at the OECD together with countries like Japan and multi-stakeholder groups on international AI governance back in 2019. And we have continued that work throughout the years to move from these principles that were adopted by countries into policy guidance on how to put them into practice. And the role of the OECD has been, since then, to be a convener of countries and multi-stakeholder groups, and to provide policy guide and analytical work to support evidence-based and understanding of the risks and opportunities of artificial intelligence. So I think in terms of the role for the OECD, there are 3 main strategic pillars. So this moving from principle to practice, and that is undertaken through several initiatives that range from a broad expert community that is supporting our work to providing metrics for policymakers, and this is through our OECD.ai policy observatory that provides trends and data, but also a database of national AI policies that allows countries to see what others are doing and also learn from experiences across the globe. And third, to promote inclusive international cooperation. And in that regard, a key major milestone was achieved last July 2024, where the Global Partnership on AI and OECD merged and joined forces to promote safe, secure, and trustworthy AI that would, again, broaden the geographic scope beyond OECD members. We have now 44 members of the Global Partnership on AI, and these include 6 countries that are not OECD members, including India, Serbia, Senegal, Brazil, and Singapore. And so the idea is that that broader geographic scope will also increase as we proceed, and so that will foster even more effective, inclusive conversations with these countries. And in terms of priorities that we see, of course, it was mentioned the Hiroshima AI process, and that is an initiative that we see as very prominent because it allows having a common standardized framework for these principles that were adopted by the G7, but are of course open to countries beyond the G7. But more than that is also the transparency element that is very important, because it's not only about committing to these principles, it's also demonstrating that companies are acting upon these principles and sharing in a transparent way which concrete actions they are taking to put them into practice. And this is really where we see also the learning experience and again, both for countries and for companies themselves that can share these initiatives and learn what they are doing in practice to promote the different principles that we see in the framework. So I think looking forward, these are the areas where the OECD will continue working: evidence, inclusive multi-stakeholder cooperation, and guidance on policies.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, OECD AI principles agreed in 2019 paved a robust foundation for national and international AI governance, and our government was very much supportive, and also we learned quite a lot from these principles. And Japan enacted new AI law only last month, but there are a lot of reflection from AI principles of OECD into our own AI law. So thank you very much. So I would like to invite two speakers from governmental bodies. So now I turn to Abhishek. Thank you very much for joining us. From the government perspective, what do you think your priorities and the emphasis in developing AI governance, and also what do you evaluate the current situation?
Thank you, Yoshi, and thank you for highlighting this very, very important issue of AI governance and how we can work together with the global community, especially with the work which is done at the OECD and various forums, whether it's the UN high-level advisory body on AI, the G7 Hiroshima process, the G20 initiatives at Brazil and now South Africa. So like the whole world together, we are trying to address a common issue with regard to how we can leverage the power of this technology, how we can use it for larger social good, how we can use it for enabling access to services, how it can lead to empowering people at the last mile. So that has been the principal mantra of what we have been doing in India. We have a large country, and we do believe that AI can be a kinetic enabler for empowering people and enabling access to education, healthcare, the remotest corners of the country in various languages, and enabling a voice interface for empowering people. To do this, we need to have a balanced, pro-innovation, inclusive approach towards development of the technology. We need to ensure that access to AI, compute, the data sets, algorithms, and other tools for building safe and trusted AI is more equitable. Currently, the state of the technology is such that the real power of AI is concentrated in a few companies in a few countries. If you have to democratize this, if you have to kind of ensure that the global south become a stakeholder in the conversations around, we need to have this principle ingrained at all forums. I'm happy to mention that at the GPA sessions that we chaired and following last year in Serbia and coming in Slovakia, this principle is well ingrained. The OECD inclusive framework also that we came up for GPA 2.0, it also defines that we need to become much more inclusive. We need to bring countries of the global south at the decision-making tables, and towards this, the initiatives at Global Digital Compact is also very welcome. But for the practical steps, how do we actually make it happen? How do we ensure that a researcher in a remote corner in a low and medium income country has access to similar compute that a researcher, say, in the Silicon Valley has? We'll need to create frameworks. The AI Action Summit that France co-chaired along with India, there was a concept of current AI that came in, which required commitments, financial commitments to build up a build up an institutional framework for funding such initiatives, for adopting AI-based technology. So that is something that we need to continue. And as we move from the French summit to the India summit that we'll be hosting next year in February, we'll need to work with the entire AI community to institutionalize this. How do we ensure that in India we are making compute accessible at a very low cost, like the high-end H100s, H200s are made available at a cost less than $1 per GPU per hour. Can we build up a similar framework so that researchers in low and medium income countries also get access to something similar? Can we build up a data sharing protocol, a protocol in which when models are trained, the data sets are much more inclusive. The data sets from contextually relevant data sets in various languages, whether they are from Asia or Africa or anywhere, can they be included while we are training the models? Can we have the cultural context added to the training data sets? If that is done, the entire development of AI will become much more inclusive. We'll be able to address problem statements, like, for example, diagnosing diseases, whether it's tuberculosis or breast cancer or diabetic retinopathy. If we are developing such solutions, or if we are developing solutions for aiding farmers, for farmer advisories, whichever geography these solutions are developed, can they be shared across other countries? We have a model in the DPI ecosystem that was developed, the digital public infrastructure. So there is a global depository of DPI solutions. Can we build up a global depository of AI solutions, which can be accessible through more countries? So that's something that we need to work on when we are working at global governance frameworks. And there are tools. How do we do privacy enhancing? How do we do anonymization of data? How do we ensure that we are able to prevent the damage that deep fakes can cause? How do we, democracies across the world are facing these challenges from misinformation on social media, and AI sometimes becomes an enabler for that. So can we develop tools for watermarking AI content? Can we develop global frameworks so that social media companies become part of this whole ecosystem, so we can prevent the risks that democracies have? So if we create such a governance framework in which all such issues are addressed, including building capacities across the world, we will be able to build up an AI ecosystem that will be more fair, more balanced, more equitable. So we are working with the global community towards this, and I hope that this discussion will further contribute to creating such enabling frameworks.
Okay, thank you very much for the very comprehensive remark. And I cannot agree more when you say, you know, we want to make use of the power of this technology. And I believe the ultimate objective of governance is to make use of this technology as much as possible, but also without concern. So this is the point we need to share, and also the common objective of building up the global governance framework. Having said this, Yuha, people say, you know, AI Act may be a little bit too strict and bringing the excessive regulation. I don't know. What is your opinion, and what is the priorities or requirement of EU?
Thank you, Yoichi, and thank you very much for this invitation. So I think it's very useful to understand that the AI Act does not regulate the technology in itself. It regulates certain uses of AI. So we have a risk-based approach, and it only intervenes where it's necessary. So there are these statements that it regulates AI. It doesn't actually. It regulates certain uses of AI which are considered to be either too harmful or dangerous, or too risky, so that there need to be some safeguards in place. So in fact, it's innovation friendly because about 80%, according to our estimate, maybe even 85% of AI systems that we see around would be unaffected by it. And it applies equally to everyone placing AI systems on the EU market, whether they are European, Asian, American, you name it. So in that sense, it creates a sort of level playing field, and it prevents fragmentation. So we have uniform rules in the European Union. We don't have a patchwork of rules. It's not as if we wouldn't have regulation without the AI Act, because the member states of the European Union would have proceeded to regulate. But the regulation is just one aspect of our activities. And it's a common misconception that we only do regulation. We actually invest a lot in innovation. We've been doing that over the years, and we've only increased our investment in that. Made several announcements about that in recent months. And the third pillar, in addition to trust, so regulation, excellence, so innovation, research, etc. The third pillar is international engagement. So we think that because some of the challenges, or many of them related to AI, actually don't know boundaries. They are global. We think that cooperation is both necessary and useful. So we want to be involved and we engage bilaterally and multilaterally to support the setting up of a global level playing field for trustworthy human-centric AI. And we build coalitions with those who share the objectives. We want to have AI for the good of us all. So we want to promote the responsible stewardship and democratic governance of AI, but we also do cooperation on technical aspects. For example, cooperation on AI safety, support to innovation, and its take-up in some key sectors. So we do this both bilaterally with a number of partner countries, which is increasing, but we're also involved in all the key discussions. G7, so Hiroshima process was already mentioned, Hiroshima Friends, G20, the Global Partnership on AI. So we are a founding member, the European Union is a founding member of the Global Partnership on AI. So we've been involved in that from the very, very beginning. Now, of course, in an integrated partnership with the OECD. And with the OECD, of course, we are involved in all the key working groups which relate to AI. We are a member of the network of AI safety institutes, and we've been actively involved also in the summits, Bletchley, Seoul, Paris, and then the upcoming summit in India is, of course, also where we will be involved in. And, of course, we are also, via the member states, we are involved in the UN processes, so especially the Global Digital Compact and its implementation, which is now in a critical phase. And basically, we do this from two perspectives. On the one hand, we do it to promote our goals, which I listed, and then also to ensure that whatever conclusions, declarations, and statements that result from these initiatives and events, that they are compatible with our objectives on the one hand, and the strategy, and compatible also with our regulations, so that we don't end up in a situation where we have international commitments which are somehow conflicting with what is our strategy in general, and then our regulation in particular. So this is basically the rationale for our engagement and our involvement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your very detailed explanation. And we really understand, the EU AI Act is objective pursuing the innovation-friendly environment across EU region. And we also discussed in G7, the different countries, different jurisdictions have different backgrounds, different social or cultural or historical conditions. So the approaches to AI governance have to be different from one from another. But still, that is why we need to pursue interoperability across different jurisdictions, different frameworks. And I'm personally impressed by the approach by European Commission in the discussion on the Code of Practice of AI Act, which is very open to all stakeholders. So our private sector people were also very much impressed when they joined the discussion and submitted their comments, which were much reflected to the current text, and we are expecting the very good result from the discussion as Code of Practice as part of the AI Act. Thank you very much. So now I turn to the other stakeholders. So Melinda, from the perspective of a big AI company, how do you evaluate the current situation of global AI governance, and also what are the priorities, or what are the requirement as a private company in the governance framework, and what do you expect?
Thank you so much for the question, and thank you for the opportunity to be here.
As you were giving the opening remarks and listing all of the frameworks and the acronyms and all of the principles and bodies that are involved here, it's really remarkable the work that has gone on in the last couple years in the international community on AI governance. And there's just been an incredible proliferation of frameworks and principles and codes and governing strategies. And I think at this moment, it's really important to consider connecting the dots. I think we don't want to continue down the road of duplication and proliferation and continued putting down of principles. I think we've largely seen a similarity of and a coherence of approach around the various frameworks that have been put out at a high level. And I think it's really important at this point to think about how do we connect these frameworks and these principles.
Thank you. How do we connect these principles and these frameworks? Because if we do not think about that, then we are at risk, I think it was mentioned, of fragmentation. And from a private company's perspective, the challenge of running this technology and developing and deploying this technology that is global and doesn't have borders, as we're all familiar with, is the risk of the fragmentation of approach. And so I think it's really important to think about what do we have in common and how do we draw connections between these principles. Another priority is really moving from principle to practice. And I've been encouraged to see this as a kind of theme in conversations throughout a few days here on AI governance. We have the principles, but how do we put them into practice? And I mean that in a few different ways. Of course, from a company's perspective, what does it mean? And I'm encouraged by the work of kind of trying to translate some of these things into concrete measures. But I think also from a country's perspective, countries that want to implement and deploy and really roll out AI solutions to public challenges, how do they do that? What is the toolkit of measures and policies and frameworks at a domestic level that is important to have in place? Things like an energy policy, a scientific infrastructure and research infrastructure, data, compute power, all of those things are really important. How do countries make sure they have the right elements in place to really leverage AI? And then I think, of course, from the perspective of policy institutions, how do they set out toolkits and frameworks to make sure that all stakeholders have the opportunity to adopt AI? And so I think I'm also encouraged as we think about moving from principle to practice that there seems to be a broadening of the conversation. I think in terms of the focus beyond some of the early conversation in the AI governance space was focused solely on kind of advanced frontier risks. And I think it's important, I think the Hiroshima AI principles and process were really important in ensuring that we're looking at maximizing the benefits as well as minimizing the risks. And so what does that mean? And how do we expand the conversation beyond risks to make sure it's benefits-based? And that means including a lot of stakeholders who haven't been part of the conversation to date. So I think looking ahead to the India AI Impact Summit, how do we include as many stakeholders as possible in the conversation, civil society, everyone from the global south? How do we include that, expand that conversation, and how do we make sure we're moving to tangible, concrete impacts?
Okay, thank you very much. So the very important 2 points, the coherence or avoiding fragmentation and improving the interoperability. And also the second point, the from principle into actions. This is very important, and that exactly what we are now pursuing. For example, I understand OECD is making the efforts elaborating the toolkit for AI principles. And also Hiroshima process, thank you very much for mentioning that. We have the 20 reports from companies which describes what the companies are doing inside the company when they assess the risks, and also take the countermeasures and publicize what they are doing. So all those information are on the website of OECD now, and there is a lot of learnings from the practical information. But still, we found those reports are a little bit difficult to read up and understand. So this is another challenge for practicality, but I believe we are making the progress. So having listened to these answers, what is your opinion, and what do you evaluate the current situation?
Sure, thank you very much. And thank you for the invitation to be on this panel. So reflecting on this space around AI governance, both from how we within EY are looking at this, but also from what we are seeing amongst our private sector and public sector clients whom we are helping with setting up their AI transformation and their governance frameworks around this. We are seeing that especially as more and more of these organizations are moving from exploring possible uses of AI in test cases towards actually building it into mission-critical use cases where failure of the AI system will either have a significant impact directly on consumers or citizens, or have significant impacts on the ability of the organization itself to operate. It is becoming very critical for organizations to have the confidence that they have a good governance framework in place, which will allow them to assess and measure and understand the reliability of the AI system, the use cases for which it truly operates, what are the boundary conditions within which it should be used and where it should not be used, the kind of information that also the people within the organization and people outside need to have in order to be able to use the AI systems correctly. And so if we reflect from that point of view of the need that organizations have to have a good governance framework for the use of AI onto these global exercises and global initiatives, I think there are effectively two dimensions in which these global initiatives are important. One is the direct one, which is things like the OECD AI principles helped all organizations to have a foundation that they could reflect on as they're thinking, what are the key things that we need to have in our governance thinking? The G7 Code of Conduct has helped to elaborate that further, and has helped to pinpoint in more detail what goes into questions such as what is good transparency, what is a way to think about inclusiveness, for instance, of the people that need to be reflected on when developing these systems. And now the Global Digital Compact also helps to provide a broader understanding of the way to think about AI governance within the broader context of good governance in itself. But then there's also the indirect way, from the point of view of companies, the indirect way in which these global instruments, of course, help to make sure that different countries have a common base from where to approach how to create either regulations or voluntary guidelines, whatever works best within their particular context. But it gives a common baseline so that businesses that want to operate also across jurisdictions will have a common basis on which to be able to engage in those different jurisdictions.
Okay, thank you very much. Exactly what you said was we need to improve interoperability and coherence across different governance frameworks, and we have to admit, there are differences in approaches, but we need the common foundation, probably as human centricity and the democratic values, and including transparency or accountability or data protection or whatever. So thank you very much for the comment. And so we believe our approaches and the world is proceeding in the right direction by sharing the experiences and the knowledges and try to improve coherence and the interoperability. Then we have different frameworks going on. So second question, what do you think you need to do as a stakeholder? What is your role, and what is your strategy in coming years? And in particular, what do you expect from UN Global Digital Compact, which is now discussing the global AI governance? So at this time, I would like to start with Abhishek.
See, like, as I mentioned, our strategy for AI implementation is to ensure that we use this technology for enabling access to all services, to all Indians in all languages, especially through voice. That will really empower people globally. What do we expect from the Global Digital Compact to make this a reality? We have a lot of expectations because we are catching up with the West in the evolution of this technology. How do we kind of enable access? Like the first request that we had to the, especially the US, because that's where the whole compute lies. How do we ensure that compute is made available in India? So we have been working with them and the other companies who own compute. 90% of it is controlled by one company to ensure that we have access to at least 50,000 GPUs in India. So that becomes one practical requirement that we have. Second is to build in, ensure that the models, which are again developed primarily in the West, and DeepSeek came in China. So all these models, how do they become more inclusive in the sense that how they are trained on data sets from across the world? So that becomes our second request. And the third, which is the most important part, is building capacities. How do we ensure that, and UN Global Digital Compact document also talks about capacity building initiative, setting up a capacity building network. How do we ensure that skills and capacities in all countries are developed, enhanced, and further to be able to take up advantage of the evolving technologies? And then we also need to build safeguards, like the OECD principles are there for responsible AI, for ensuring safe, trustworthy development of AI. But to ensure that, one would need tools and even regulators, especially being in the government, when we feel that there's a need to regulate, but then how do we enhance the regulatory capacity? Even if you want to test a particular solution, whether it meets the standards, meets the benchmarks, do you have the regulatory capacity to test that? So enhancing that, enhancing cooperation on that will become very, very critical. So I would say that my asks with the Global Digital Compact and the UN process will be at the operational level. The broad principles are largely agreed on. Everybody talks the same language at every forum. But how do we translate that talk into action? That would be the real requirement that we will have. And we are happy to work with the global community in making this a reality, not only for India, but for the entire global South and the world community.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, inclusivity will be one of the key words in the coming month in global AI governance discussion, and we have a lot of expectation for the India's AI Impact Summit next year. Yeah. So thank you very much for the comment, and now I invite Melinda for your views.
Thank you so much. So under the theme of moving from principles to practice, three ideas. One is to continuing to build policy toolkits, which I think the OECD is really well placed to do for countries that want to advance their AI adoption. Two, I think, is libraries of resources along the lines of evaluations and benchmarks and third-party resources of testing of AI that's been done, and really putting that in one place. There are a lot of entities engaged in this, and I think building the knowledge base will be really important. And then third, I think, is really continuing the global scientific conversation. And I think on that point, this is where I lead into the Global Digital Compact. The UN Scientific Panel on AI as an independent scientific body to continue research and conversation and making sure that we are having the best scientific voices coming together. And then the global dialogue on AI governance through UN forums. I think that is the convening power there is what's really important in bringing the right stakeholders to place.
Okay, thank you very much. Very important 3 points. So Melinda mentioned OECD toolkit. So now I would like to invite Lucia for your comment.
Yes, thank you. Indeed, we have started this project to build a toolkit to implement the OECD principles, and it comes exactly from this demand to have more actionable resources that would guide countries on how to go from these agreed principles into concrete actions. And it was agreed by the Ministerial Council meeting at the OECD just at the beginning of June. And what is this toolkit going to do, and how it's going to be built? It will be an online interactive tool that will allow users, we expect mostly government representatives to make use of these resources by consulting and interrogating the large database that we have on national AI policies, but it will be a guided interaction that will allow countries to understand where they need to act, and that would concern both the more values-based section of the principles, but also the policy areas that include, as we have heard, issues around compute capacity, data availability, research and development resources. And it will guide countries through understanding their needs, but also what the priorities may be, and then provide suggestions that would be policy options that other countries in a similar level of advancements or in a region that is the same as the country that is navigating this toolkit, to have these suggestions on policy options and practices that have already been put in place and that have been proven effective. And so on one hand, we want to build this user experience. On the other hand, the objective is to enrich the repository of national policies and strategies that we already have for 72 jurisdictions on the OECD database of national strategies. And that is one of the, I think, the priorities that also we see that we need to build further upon, as we have heard the global outreach of the UN. So the OECD and the UN have also established a memorandum of understanding, and we hope to have this increased cooperation on themes such as this one. And the idea is to build this toolkit, again, through co-creation with countries, and for that we are organizing workshops in different regions. One such workshops will be, for instance, with ASEAN countries and with the cooperation with Japan, and so that we better understand the needs, because as we have heard, I think everyone is agreeing on the broader actions, but then when it comes to practice, we better need to understand what are the challenges, and that is where we want to work with countries around these challenges. And I think we have heard from several speakers the opportunities is where we want to put the focus on. We have also been advancing work on understanding AI uptake across sectors, and again, this is in view of moving from this conversation that is very broad into concrete applications and they're understanding better what are the bottlenecks and what are the pathways to increase adoption when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to education, for instance. And perhaps just to close on that point, I think when it comes to the Hiroshima reporting framework, it's interesting to see that the framework doesn't only talk about risk identification, assessment, and mitigation. The last chapter also talks about how to use AI to advance human and global interests. And it's interesting to see that in this first reporting cycle by 20 companies, there are initiatives that are reported on how companies are actually engaging with governments and civil societies to have projects that indeed foster AI adoption across these key sectors. So yeah, once again, this will be priorities and we see this as the key actions moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, OECD AI principles, GPA, Hiroshima process, all those initiatives are backed up by OECD Secretariat. So we look forward to working very closely in the future. So time is rather limited, but first I invite Ansgar. So what is your point?
Sure. Well, very much I'd like to echo the point that was made regarding the need to move from principles to practice, as well as the point around capacity building. And within those, well, I would like to also highlight the work that OECD is doing around the incidence database, which is really helping to get a better understanding about where are real failures within AI occurring as opposed to hypothetical ones. But also, I think it is very important for us to be supporting and encouraging broader participation in the standards development in this space, which are often a key tool that industry uses in order to be able to understand how to actually go towards implementation. And it is a good reference point so that industry feels, yes, this is an approved, the wider community agrees that this is the good approach to do it. However, all of these things, in order to really achieve their intended outcome of being able to provide end users with the confidence and trust in these kinds of systems, will require also reliable, repeatable assessments that can be done on how these systems are being implemented, how the government's frameworks are being implemented. And in order to have these, we need greater transparency as to what the particular assessments are intended to achieve and how they're doing this, so that we have expectation management, so that users will understand really how to interpret what this assessment has actually tested for. We need greater capacity building also within the community to build an ecosystem of assessment and assurance providers in this space. And we've seen some interesting work around that happening also already in some jurisdictions such as the UK, and the OECD is helping in this space as well. Effectively, we just need the community to be able to provide clarity as to what is a good governance framework, how to approach this, hence the standards, and how to assess whether it has achieved and being done in the appropriate way through things like assessments.
Okay, thank you very much. The engagement of all communities, including the civil society, is very, very important, and the multi-stakeholder approach is definitely essential. So we believe the role of IGF in AI governance is increasingly important. So sorry for the time remaining, but Juha, what is the role of Europe, and how do you think Europe will be working with the world?
So we are, of course, very much involved in sort of also the discussions on the GDC, the Global Digital Compacts, as I mentioned earlier. And I think to echo what Melinda said, we think that the scientific panel, independent scientific panel, is quite a crucial component of this. And I think that the text, the GDC text, is very useful. I think that what was agreed last year in that regard was very successful, and we hope that that will be then translated in the implementation the way that it was expressed, and we do that in the spirit of the text. And I think that in this regard also for the dialogue, the AI governance dialogue, we think it's important that it doesn't actually duplicate existing efforts, because there are quite a lot of them, and that's why also in the GDC text it's mentioned that it would be on the margins of existing UN events, and I think that would be very useful, because I think overall there is some call for streamlining in terms of the number of events and initiatives and forums that we have in the international governance landscape in the area of AI. I think that this kind of multiplication is not necessarily sustainable in the long run. I think we have made partial steps forward in the integrated partnership that was formed between the Global Partnership on AI and the OECD. We welcome that, because we had some overlap between the expert communities. And also, I think now that initiative has a better sense of purpose, also backed by the structures of the OECD, which make it more impactful from our perspective. And we look forward to how that will develop further. And it will also have then a role in taking these discussions to a greater audience and membership. One thing that I wanted to mention just very briefly is that despite this multiplication of efforts and the seeming almost chaotic nature, if you like, in some respects, to exaggerate a bit, there are some sort of constants, however. And one of these constants is, and Melinda mentioned this as well, that they go in the same direction. One item, one aspect which has been included in many of them is the risk-based approach, which I mentioned as the foundation of the AI Act, but it's also, for example, reflected in the Hiroshima AI process, guiding principles, and the code of conduct. It's also reflected elsewhere in some of the statements that have been made in the summit. So you know, we have some common ground, but I think it would be desirable over the long run to try and seek some convergence and streamlining.
Okay, thank you very much. So there are a lot of efforts going on, and the GDC is also one of them, and maybe WISIS Plus 22. And the role of the UN will be very important, but we need to avoid the duplication, and we need to streamline and focus our power on the most efficient way. So I hope in the development of AI governance discussions, the role of IGF will be very important, and this needs to be the place where the people get together and discuss not only internet governance, but also AI governance, or digital technology governance, to be discussed by multi-stakeholders here in IGF. So thank you very much. And I wanted to take one question, but I'm not sure I'm allowed.
Just got 1 minute.
Just ask. Yeah. Okay. Please. Okay. Yeah, please. But maybe you need microphone.
We can hear. You can go there and ask.
Oh yeah. Okay. So microphone.
Go there and ask the IGF protocol.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much for great discussions. My name is Shinichiro Terada from the University of Kyushu, Japan. And I'd like to understand AI governance compared to the internet governance. And when the internet was spreading globally, there were various challenges, such as supporting access to people around the world. But in particular, while the internet was controlled by was not controlled by any single entity. In the case of AI, there are many sub of the organization, including tech companies, have become key players. As we now implement AI governance, what do you see as the key differences compared to the time of the internet expansion?
Okay, thank you very much for this complicated question, but you want to answer. Okay, you have it.
So it is a very complicated question. I comment on a sort of one aspect maybe, and I let, of course, my fellow panelists to comment. But I think, broadly speaking, I heard this comment the day before yesterday that AI is on the internet and therefore internet governance, is suitable for it. There is more to AI than what is on the internet. Think of embedded AI, for example, robotics, intelligent robotics, autonomous vehicles, etc. So not all of AI is on the internet. There may be some inspiration AI governance can take from the principles of internet governance, but I think there are numerous issues related to AI governance which cannot be if you like, taken over from internet governance, which are specific to AI, which have sort of characteristics where you don't find any matching aspects in internet governance. So I would personally see those as broadly different, with potentially some inspiration for AI governance taken from internet governance.
Thank you very much. Who else wants to?
I would broadly agree with him. The only thing that I would say is that while AI and internet are two different things, AI includes a lot more than internet, as he mentioned, use cases also and input-wise also, as rightly mentioned, which are controlled by a few corporations there. So in order to make it more equitable and bring in the principles of internet governance to AI governance, it will have to be multi-stakeholder. It will have to ensure that the way we approach towards managing AI governance is more inclusive. It involves people who are technology providers as also people who are technology users. And when we are able to do that balance, we'll be able to make it more fair, more balanced, more equitable. And this will require a lot more of global partnership than what internet governance has done so far. But the frameworks and the mechanisms, the protocols which Internet Governance Forum has evolved can be a good guiding light for working on the AI governance principles.
Maybe if I can just add one additional perspective, perhaps, which I think links closely to what Juha mentioned as one of the themes that has been picked up across so many of the governance approaches around AI, which is the risk-based approach. Within AI, it is very much the risk depends on the use case, whereas because AI is a core kind of technology that you can use in so many different kinds of applications and application spaces, whereas the internet, in that sense, is more of a uniform kind of thing.
Any more? Okay, so thank you very much. Time is up, but I hope you enjoyed the discussion, and please send the uploads to the excellent speakers. Actually, this is too excellent to close now, but time is up. But thank you very much. You don't believe, they are given the questions only in midnight yesterday.
And we must also acknowledge the presence of His Excellency, the President of Mauritius, who is there listening to us.
Okay, that's great. So, yeah, thank you very much, His Excellency. Thank you. Okay, thank you.